I have watched back the footage of this video and I realized that the quality came out really bad for my camera. The reason for that is because the lighting was too soft. Anyway, onto the video. Why scrolling cat pictures requires TLS. Imagine it's a Sunday afternoon. You're sitting down at the cafe, you connect to the free public Wi-Fi, and you load open Pinterest and you start browsing cat pictures. You stumble upon an absolutely regarded picture of a cat, and it makes you smile. But there is a ghost in the stream. Not everything is as peaceful and innocent as it may seem on the internet. Someone is watching you scroll cat pictures, and it's not the barista behind you. Your unencrypted cat pictures are being intercepted not by a hacker, but by your own internet services provider. So yeah, at some point in time, me, maybe other people have asked the question, why encrypt everything? How much compute are we wasting encrypting all of these things that we don't need to encrypt? But that question misses some of the reasons why we encrypt things. And so to reveal some of those reasons, we have to read a little bit about the history of the internet and encryption. Some time ago, in fact, in 2012, security researchers noticed something a little bit strange. Even after they deleted cookies, enabled privacy settings in their browsers, or used maybe extensions to block trackers, advertising companies could still track them with 100% accuracy. How was this possible? Because when the users were visiting unencrypted sites, Verizon was able to intercept the traffic. And right before sending the packets to the website, they added an extra request header. This little one down at the bottom there, XUIDH. This stands for Unique Identifier Header, and it was basically used by advertisers to track people across the internet. Pretty invasive. And the annoying part is that you could not remove it because it was being inserted after the packets had already left your machine. And Verizon only stopped this behavior after they copped a $1.35 million fine, which is absolute peanuts for them, by the way. But if this traffic was encrypted, they would not have been able to do that. But then perhaps even worse, in 2017, people using Comcast, which is an American internet services provider, they started seeing pop-ups on random websites that they visited from Comcast, and they looked very official. And these pop-ups were actually coming from Comcast. Comcast was inspecting requests and inserting hundreds of lines of JavaScript in 2014. And these scripts were determining if the user was near their data cap and then issuing a pop-up. If that wasn't bad enough, when someone actually went to the Comcast support forum and complained about this, the vice president of policy and standards responded by telling the user that those pop-ups only show up if you've ignored several of their emails about your data cap running out. Wow, I feel so much better. Luckily, it was just a pop-up about their data cap, their quota. Imagine if it was something worse. What if they were Bitcoin mining on everyone's machine? What if someone compromised Comcast or the script that they inserted and used it to hack all of their users? Once again, this is another case where if the traffic was encrypted, which Comcast has no say in that process, they would not have been able to do this. But I hear the thoughts already, or at least for me, when I thought, okay, so we've got these evil corporations that are spamming people with ads and pop-ups, so we have to encrypt everything. Doesn't this tank our performance? And that is part of the story because in the past, setting up a secure connection using SSL or TLS was pretty compute heavy, and there was a practice on servers to have an extra PCI card just for the SSL handshakes. And so it's pretty reasonable for people to have this impression, especially if they were working in the industry back then, to have this impression that SSL is really expensive. And so when you're doing all these TLS handshakes, it's eating a bunch of compute. But actually, as I have found out, I was not aware of this before I did this research. There have been some key innovations in hardware and software that have made this performance impact effectively negligible. Of course, hardware constantly makes these kinds of innovations. And one such innovation that they made was this dedicated crypto instructions built into the chips called AES-NI. And this instruction set on the chip can encrypt multiple gigabits of data per second, which means that it's about as fast as accessing RAM. And then on the software side of innovations, we have TLS 1.3, which not all clients on the internet are using that. And a lot of proxies, they may offer 1.3, but clients may choose something else like 1.2, or in some cases even 1.1. However, in TLS 1.3, they cut the handshake times in half. This is referred to as zero round trip time or session resumption. Essentially, the server has cached like a pre-shared key or a session ticket, and when the client reconnects, they can immediately start sending encrypted data. So with these innovations, the performance impact of TLS encryption is now a fraction of a percent in terms of, say, CPU usage. Even though the industry was pretty much forced to adopt TLS everywhere because of corporations doing these silly things, it wasn't necessarily a bad thing, because not only were the performance impacts not as bad because of innovations, but also there are three things that we get from encryption, one of which is widely known and acknowledged, which is confidentiality. So when two parties are talking over an encrypted stream, we know that no one can see inside that stream. But the other benefits are things like integrity, meaning that the message that you send cannot be tampered with. Of course, this is kind of obvious if you think about it, because what someone sees on the outside of an encrypted conversation is just a scrambled bunch of bytes that don't have any kind of meaning. So if you try to insert something into that stream, it's just going to corrupt everything and break someone's request. And of course, authenticity, meaning that when you establish a encrypted conversation with someone, they are presenting, most of the times, a certificate that has been validated and exists in a chain of trust, so you know that that person that you're communicating with is who you expect and who you trust. So it's pretty nice that we have those benefits kind of as a standard. Whereas if you went back a couple decades, we used to have things like secure parts of a website that were encrypted and then the other parts of the website that were not encrypted. And for the most part, that worked fine. But in conclusion, this push for encrypting the whole web, which happened around 2018, it wasn't because people had their tinfoil hats on and they were afraid that someone was snooping on them or that the government was spying on them and they needed to protect all of their data and messages. It was simply a direct response to companies and corporations crossing ethical boundaries and pretty much violating people's trust and tampering with their requests and their data, pretending to be the person that the user thought they were communicating with. And so that's pretty much why we can't have nice things. Although, like I said, I suppose it is nice that we have encryption everywhere now. That concludes my very brief look into the history of why we need to encrypt things that seem not that important. One final little fun fact for you before I go. I did mention that the modern processors have dedicated instructions for doing TLS, and it's as fast as memory. So then, why is it that when I run a network service that has to terminate TLS, it faces more compute demand than a server that's not doing TLS? I looked into this too, and it could probably be its own separate video. And the answer is literally just, it's not TLS that is causing the compute usage. It is tracking all of the state in memory. So while the cryptographic part is super fast, the machine still has to keep track of all of these TLS connections. So you have things like the TCP control block, you've got socket buffers that you have to create, you've got the session keys, session tickets, like I mentioned before, and other things that I won't go into detail about just right now. If you are interested in that detail, let me know in the comments, and I might try to formulate something with a little bit more detail about that topic as well. Anyway, that's it. Thank you for watching. And if you're interested in obtaining your own FTX US Risk Management Team shirt or sweatshirt, I now have them in the store on my YouTube page. For those of you who are asking where to acquire one, don't tell Sam Bankman. Actually, he's probably in the Panama Islands. He has no idea what the hell's going on. So I can print these shirts and no one can stop me. Anyhow, I don't know how to end this video, so that's it. Thank you. Bye.